This is the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, where it's all about getting the information you need from successful leading marketers to build and grow your digital marketing agency. Brought to you by Itamar Shafir, founder and CEO of Umbrella, the technology platform and brand that is powering thousands of marketing agencies around the country. Find him at umbrellaus.com. Now, here's your host, Kevin Pruitt.
This is Kevin Pruitt, host of the Marketing Umbrella Podcast. I have a very special guest today. He's the Chief Revenue Officer at Pairzon, where he leads the global sales, marketing, and business development teams to deliver AI-powered data intelligence solutions for retailers and brands. With over 24 years of experience in digital media, he has a proven track record of driving revenue growth, scaling businesses, and executing successful mergers and acquisitions across the marketing, ad tech, and media industries. He's also passionate about leveraging data, technology, and creativity to create value and impact for the digital ecosystem. Please join me in welcoming my special guest, Lewis Rothkopf, to the Marketing Umbrella Podcast. Lewis, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. This is exciting.
So we had a really quick chat, and we were both bemoaning the weather we're experiencing right now. But it is nice to be inside. But Lewis, this is a very short bio, so let's round that out a little bit for our listeners. What is missing? What did I not mention?
What is missing? So you mentioned I've been doing this for about 24 years. I started at the very, very beginning, early days of digital advertising, selling banner ads on news sites and whatnot. And what's really interesting about the last 2.5 decades in digital is we've come so far as an industry in terms of technology, right? Mm-hmm. So we're able to run video ads, and we're able to run, send ads via SMS and email, and we're even able now to use out of home to send targeted advertising, and that's great, and we love all that. However, there have been problems that have persisted in our industry for its entire existence that we, for whatever reason as an industry, have not solved really well. There's a few of those things that are probably on your listeners' minds, things like CCPA in California, GDPR, the privacy regulation in the EU, and then similar regulations that they're sprouting up throughout the country and throughout the world. We found at our company, and certainly others have recognized this as well, that as the industry, in respect for those regulations and potentially forthcoming ones, as the industry prepares for a world without third-party cookies and a world in which privacy regs change the way that we target advertising, the most precious asset that marketers have, particularly retailers, is their own first-party data. Mm-hmm. So there is a time and a place to bring in third-party data, but if you're working with first-party data, there's no issue with opt-in because the marketer is collecting this data at the register or in the loyalty program. And so for the first time, companies like ours are finally helping marketers cross that chasm from the last 20 years of behavioral targeting to what highly targeted, highly sophisticated marketing looks like in 2023 and beyond. I just realized I didn't answer your question even in the least. I just went off on my own show.
And he's running for office, folks. That's right. Let me answer that by saying this. That's not at all. Not at all.
I would just add that you gave me a much better bio reading and said many more nice things about me than I would ever say about myself. So I hope not to disappoint today.
No, not at all. And it's interesting because I told you before we hit the record button that I'd listened to a couple of other episodes, the podcast episodes you've done, and I really want to kind of drill down on specifics, things that are, like we said, zeitgeist, moments. But let's talk a little bit about just Pairzon to lay a foundation for the company right now. What's the space? What's the ideal client profile? What's the USP? You touch on those things so our listeners have a little better understanding.
Absolutely. So Pairzon is a company that helps marketers predict which of their consumers are most likely to convert online and offline. It is a tool that brings together AI algorithms to do predictive analytics on your consumers, ranging from those that are really, really good customers of yours. They come into the store every 7 days and they buy a lot of stuff, all the way down to those that are maybe need to be reactivated. They come to the store once a year, if that. They don't spend much money when they do. being able to tie this together with an understanding of what happened to the consumer after they saw your ad online or saw your SMS or read your email. What did they do? Did they go to the store? Did they not go to the store? Did they buy it online? If they go to the store, very often the loop is broken. And so it's hard for marketers to understand what happened offline after they saw the ad. Right. There have been some companies that have been doing a solution to this in the form of geo restriction and geo targeting. And they would be able to say, look, this person saw this ad and then they went to your store. The problem with that approach is, what if it's in a mall? What if it's in a shopping center? Did you know where in the mall they went to? Mm-hmm. And what did they do when they got there? Did they buy anything? Mm-hmm. And so a good first step for these geolocatable programs, being able to tie directly into the merchant's POS system and pull the transaction logs, that's what we do. Mm-hmm. That creates a completely closed loop of first-party data. And it's interesting, marketers are still, in many cases, optimizing their media to old proxy valueless metrics like click-through rate or video completion rate, which are things that, as I'm sure you know, have very little to no impact on your actual sales as a business. And so,
and certainly not predictive.
Correct, exactly. You know, somebody clicks on an ad, like, what are they going to do? Do they like the car? Are they going to buy the car? You don't really know. Whereas tying together all of that with first-party data gives marketers that full view of their business, what's happening, and critically, what they need to do and change within their targeting in real time to achieve the best ROAS.
Right. And as you mentioned earlier about, first-party versus, say, third-party data, I mean, it is so important to, like, you are the journey you described is within the retailer's ecosystem. So it does remain first party, through their loyalty programs, through the opt-ins that they've already done, so it is
You're
really
exactly correct.
Kind of a closed system almost. And I think that also, just from a layman's standpoint, I think that cuts down frustration and spam fatigue, because
100%.
If somebody reaches out to me that I have already reached out to, then there's an expectation that I've almost given them an implied permission to do that. You call me out of the blue from some random 800 number and start talking to me like you and I know each other. That's a completely different shopping experience.
I would love to know who that works for, right? Like, we all get these every day. We get the calls, we get the emails, and like, it's got to be working for somebody or they wouldn't do it.
It's got to be just mass.
It's got to be, because like, I don't answer the phone approach. When I see that. Who answers the phone without screening the call these days? Who opens an email in their spam box intentionally? And so it's really, really interesting to think that like someone's making money off of that, but I don't know who.
So let's talk about the structure of how Pairzon is, the package that is included there. So how's the pricing structure developed? Is it based on, return on ad spend? Is it based on, a percentage of sales? How do you price? Because it's one thing to come to me and say, hey, we can help you have a better, prediction of your buyers, potential buyers' activities or behavior. But it's another thing to say that's worth, this amount to you. How do you price that?
So we try to keep it really straightforward. Pricing is based on the software as a service, the SaaS model. And for us, it's based upon number of transactions per month. So some of our customers might see 3 million transactions a month, which means they're pinging our server 3 million times. And then pricing is based on a fee schedule that scales upward as the number of transactions increase. It's a very straightforward implementation. So if you think about Pairzon, the system in the middle, there's really two sides of connectivity that it uses to do what it does. The first side is integration with the POS systems, pulling in the transaction logs from our customers' cash registers, pulling in loyalty data, marrying that with the transaction logs. And so we've always got this legacy and real-time view of what's happening at the cash registers of our clients. The other side of the slide is our connectivity into media buying platforms. So the way that it works is you go into our console, you create your audiences based on what we talked about a moment ago. You then push those audiences directly into Google or Meta or TikTok or any other social platform or marketing automation platform. And the data that you're pushing is living, breathing audience data. So if Lewis finds himself in the really, really good customer group, right? Customers that are loyal, they come to the store every 7 days, and all of a sudden I drop off the face of the earth. Well, I'm going to drop down pretty quickly into customers that have lapsed, customers that need a bit extra love, customers that need a promotion or a discount. And that happens in real time. You don't have to wait until the monthly push or until you get results from a survey. You're able to, in real time, administer your business with audiences that make the most sense for how what you're trying to accomplish.
That's probably that second level. That's DEFCON 2 from what I probably had pictured in my mind about, how granular, how micro, it really drills down. But
down to the SKU level.
No doubt about it. Yeah, it is. And individual customer. I mean, it is, their unique behavior. So
that's right.
Is there also a macro application to this that says, we can just make these decisions based on the channel that we've chosen, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, whether it's, you fill in the blank of what media channel you want to choose. Can you say, hey, we know because we've targeted this, this channel, we've seen this increase in sales or transactions. Is that also part of the process?
It is, and that is exactly the sort of optimization that I think most marketers and agencies, if not all, do. The interesting part comes to be when people ask us who our competitor is. Our biggest competitor is Excel, right? Like most of our customers, before we work with them, have 10 spreadsheets open with 5 analysts, and they're trying to cut and paste. They're trying to pluck out these learnings and make them actionable. But as smart as these folks are, there's just no good way to get as much juice from a manual interpreter, a manual analyst, as you would from an always-on algorithm. I mean, this is why AI exists, right? So you're not being disintermediated as a marketer. You're not being quieted. You're simply dedicating your time to things that are of greater value. So as a marketer, that I'm making this up, Facebook performs really, really well for your advertising. Great, run on Facebook. But add a layer of audiences on top of it so that you're able to really calibrate your message to those users. And you said something earlier I want to address. What's going on with consumers? So, we're technologists and we're marketers. We go home at the end of the day and we have families and we're consumers. And I'll bet you've been really, really frustrated to have been shoe shopping one day. And then you go to the store and you buy the shoes. And then for months afterwards, you see the ad for that shoe everywhere you go because the loop isn't closed.
Right.
And so you as a consumer are stuck seeing the same ad over and over and over again. And that makes consumers angry. And it makes them do things like install ad blockers. So if we can do them the courtesy of not showing them ads for things they've already bought, then they in turn are going to have a much better experience online. We can't ever fail to consider the consumer as part of the marketing mix.
I have an absolute real-time example this week. 2 weeks ago, I bought a car, and I was shopping online for a specific brand, model, year, range, whatever. And I still get, these pop-up ads for that specific car. Like, hey, you still in the market for this? I'm stop. Leave me alone.
No, I'm out.
Turn that off. I bought it 2 weeks ago. Leave me. Yeah. Now you're annoying me.
and that's not just a bad consumer experience, right? It's a waste of money.
Yeah.
Like, why would you as a marketer keep showing this ad to somebody who already bought the product? Like it's crazy. And yet that's what we've been doing as an industry for a very long time and what folks are trying to fix.
I love the analogy you use that our biggest competitor is Excel. So the first thing that came to my mind was like, it's like static versus dynamic. I mean, it is such an old school thing. And the analogy that popped in my head, and you can use this on a future podcast episode if you want to, but when you use that, our biggest competitor Excel, it's like the biggest competitor to a plumber is a DIY husband.
That's right.
That's right. They're going to call me anyway because he's going to screw it up.
And the biggest hazard to a household is a DIY husband trying to fix the plumbing.
That's right.
Yes, very, very agreed.
Yeah, I love that analogy. But I talk about like I mean, you mentioned a couple times just AI. AI is the big, computer generated elephant in the room, that we're all dealing with. But how are we in the whole marketing space? How are we keeping ourselves from an over reliance on AI moving forward in the future? Do you see this coming? Do you see a time coming where we're over reliant on it?
I mean, over reliant would connote that we've gone from good net effect to bad net effect. And
Hmm.
I'm just thinking about that, strictly, first of all, from the marketing sense. But I think there's also this fear of like, are robots going to take our jobs away from us?
Yeah.
And the answer is, I don't think so. I
Hmm.
think what AI is doing is it's taking a lot of the tedium away from marketers and retailers and analysts who are pouring through those Excel sheets and trying to pull something actionable out of it and turning to things that actually matter. And I'll give you an example. About 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we as an industry started to be able to understand behavioral data. And so we collect these whole scores of data, and you'd have the analyst running into your office and say, oh my God, did you know that people who buy our blue socks are also aficionados of chocolate fudge brownie mix? And it's like, oh my gosh, that's so cool to know. And then you're like, well, what does that do for you? And it's like, I don't know, nothing. But those are the sort of things that would come out of manual reading of these campaigns and these data
Hmm.
signals. Um, if you really want to make that actionable and get away from that, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something,
Yeah.
then it really does take the power of machine learning to go through all 3 million 10 million transactions a month. I mean, it's really unlimited in what the scale of it can be, and you get better outcomes. So again, to actually answer the question you asked, my apologies. I don't think we ever have backlash from a marketing standpoint against
Hmm.
AI. I think it is not hard to imagine a world in which there's political backlash, maybe
Yeah.
even forms of religious backlash. But in terms of marketing, it just does so much better
Hmm.
than trying to calculate it with a pencil and an eraser yourself.
Yeah. I think the one question or one thought I had in my mind was when you talked about, or we were talking earlier about these like spam calls. You said, does this
Mm-hmm.
ever work? Well, obviously it worked initially in some capacity. Now it's in the abuse stage. So
Yeah.
it's like the back end of that. And that's I guess that's kind of what I was thinking in terms of like, is there a good way and a bad way to utilize AI in marketing? Is it going to be so ubiquitous that people are just going to be really bad at it because they're just lazy, or they're
Yeah.
just whatever. I mean, like content generation. That's a perfect example. I think you can now read an article online and you can almost tell, was this written by AI or was this written by a human being? Because we're just not quite there yet, especially if we're native speakers, of that
Yeah.
particular language. We can kind of tell it's a little quirky, the way it was written. So I'm just curious your
Exactly.
experience there.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of an example that I love. I will not take credit for this joke. I'll credit to a comedian whose name I can't remember. But from a marketing and consumer standpoint, you've got to make sure that you're speaking with the consumer's best interest in
Hmm.
mind, both in terms of, as you just said, your copy, your art, the creative still really matters.
Hmm.
But to connect that marketing science to humanity, because our customers are indeed humans,
Yeah.
it takes a person. It takes persons. It takes individuals who are, again, freed from the tedium that has been historically associated with online marketing and can focus on the things that matter, like, is the creative working? Are our media choices correct? Is our media mix correct? Right? Things like that. And back to the spam question, I agree with you. Somebody at some point said yes to this, but it reminds me of that old joke when man goes into the bathroom and on the urinal there's a little thing that says "Don't do drugs," and it's kind of like, is that what's going to push you over the edge? Like all of the advertising, all of the public, all your school, all your education, that did not work. But seeing it on a urinal in a bar is going to make you right. And I think it's the same thing as when you see these spam messages. It's like you're not going to sit there and read that, but
Hmm.
someone is. Like it's
Yeah.
working for someone, or they wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, that is a great great
Sorry to go
picture.
to a
You
bathroom
that's right.
analogy so
That's
early
right.
on.
We have now degraded this podcast to the lowest
Yes.
common denominator here. So
Yes. My
is there
apologies.
anything left? Yeah. No, that is I mean it's a very salient example, I think, that
Yeah.
you bring up. But talk about anything else that you're seeing right now that is just like cutting edge things we're going to be dealing with, in the very near future that is really germane to kind of the marketing space and maybe
I,
really tie that to marketing, like marketing agency owners. Like, what does it look like for them?
I'm really in love with digital out of home. It is probably, in my mind, the most exciting new medium, perhaps even more so than connected television and over the top video, because you're finally able to get to a place where you are forced as a marketer to look at other success metrics than clicks and views.
Hmm.
Because you can't, right? You can't click a billboard and you can't see how many people are watching it with their eyes. And so it forces marketers to look at the success of those campaigns through brand metrics, right? What was the impact to our brand? What was the impact to purchases, right? And I think we've committed this great sin against ourselves in the late 1990s, where we said, "Oh, clicks equals success. More clicks,
Hmm.
more success,"
Yeah.
and it just is not even remotely true. And yet, marketers and agencies have held on to that with
Hmm.
like a death grip. And so, when you get to a place where you can't take that immediate action, but you are being marketed to, and it is having an influence on you. Well, now you're forced to look at what actually worked, right? So, did they go to the store? Did they buy something, right? So, you get the idea there. I think that is very cutting edge, and we've only begun to scrape the tip of the iceberg on what digital out of home is all about, and it can do. And I think, bring it all together, we're also seeing marketers have to get smarter about their email marketing. There's sort of the spam stuff that we talked
Yeah.
about, but there's also stuff that is not spam and that the consumer has opted into and is relevant to them. But are you writing them the right way, or
Hmm.
are you using the right words? Are you speaking the right language, both literally and figuratively? These are all things that marketers can focus on when they are not, sort of obsessively focused on click-through rate, video completion rate, and things that just don't matter.
Yeah. I mean, I have a specific example of what you just mentioned about, speaking to your audience. And a lot of brands have created podcasts, that are
That's
somehow
right.
connected to their brand, but they're not a 30-minute ad spot for the brand. I mean, it may be almost completely unrelated to the product itself, but it is
That's right.
speaking to their customer. It is, it's at a heart level, it's like reaching them and providing good content for them. But it is connecting them to the brand. It is hopefully increasing retention and that type of thing. But I, um, I love the way that you, um, are so consumer centric, the way that you talk. It's not, it seems like sometimes in marketing, like we're driven by result and not necessarily, it doesn't matter who the customer is. It doesn't matter really what their behavior is. We're just trying to kind of like, you know, sneak up on them and make them buy something, type things. But you really do sense that you've got to really understand who you're speaking to, to really pull this off. Is that a fair depiction?
It's completely fair, and sort of the high-minded view of that is, again, we're all consumers. We go home. We don't want to waste people's time. We don't want to make consumers have a bad experience.
Mhm.
At the same time, though, consumers have an opportunity to turn off your ads. They can turn
Yeah.
off your ads. They can turn off your store. They can delete your bookmark from their website. They can
Hmm.
go on to like lewisstoresucks.com and say really bad things about it. And you could survive as a marketer an ad agency change. You could survive a technology partner change. You can't survive your consumers going away. And so if you're not focusing on them as individuals and people who don't like seeing the same ad over and over and over again, or people who don't like getting spam, you're missing out. And you're
Hmm.
going to sort of cede that ground, that competitive ground, to some of the newer companies, the direct to consumer companies in particular, who are finding their voice in speaking to consumers using technology,
Yep.
using AI, but not losing that essence of humanity.
Hmm. Yeah, that is exactly right, and that I think they will be the ones that are going to rise. That's the cream rising to the top at the end of the day for sure.
I hope so. I think so.
As before we jump into kind of our last segment, which is our rapid fire questions,
Uh-oh.
is there anything that you think, is there, how do we wrap this chat up with a neat little bow on it? Is there something that I haven't asked you about that you think is would be really helpful to those kind of in the marketing space?
Yeah, I mean, my advice to your listeners, to your viewers, is you got to close the loop. You gotta. If you're continuing to try to run advertising with one hand tied behind your back and one eye closed, it's just not going to work. You're
Yeah.
not going to have a good outcome, or as good an outcome as you would if you were closing that loop from media buy to sale to back to becoming a prospective customer again.
Yeah.
It's what it's all about. There's probably nothing revelatory in what I just said, but it's the truth. I mean, we've been asking as an industry for ways to do this stuff in a consumer-centric, privacy-centric way, and now companies like ours are delivering that. And by the way, you don't have to work with us. There are other ways that you can close the loop. I think ours is the best. But as long as you're sort of making a connection between your company's sales and the marketing that you're doing, and the two have just been so divorced for so long, then you're on the right track.
Yeah, you don't have to work with them. You can continue to use your outdated Excel spreadsheets if you choose to.
That's right. That's right.
We can certainly, they'll certainly help. But all right, let's shift into the rapid fire. So just, hey, really quick, first thing that comes to your mind, not long answers, very short, concise, but these are going to seem very disparate, but hey, just bear with us and go with us. We got a method behind our madness here, but
sounds good.
Yeah. Number one, did you get along with your parents growing up?
I think so. They're both gone now. May they rest in peace. But I think so. I think much of that came from a realization that they were smart people. And I think, smarter than me for sure, smarter than my children, or my children are smarter than me. My wife is smarter than me. And that kind of gives me the ability to say, aha, like you actually know your stuff. You know what you're talking about. I think with my parents, it was that sort of love of knowledge and sort of love of transferring knowledge that I think we got along pretty well.
I think we need to ask that question. Name a time when you did, and maybe a time you didn't, get along with you, because it's like different stages of life. I think you hit that. But
absolutely.
Do you have siblings?
I do have a sibling. He is in a completely different industry from me. He is an accountant. He is behind the camera.
He loves Excel spreadsheets.
He loves Excel. He loves the IRS. He loves all the states. No, he very, very different personality, different career. But I think that's the way it is with brothers sometimes.
For sure. Do you have a pet?
We have a pet. His name is Angus. He's a dog. He's a big, smelly, ill-behaved dog who would fight to the death to protect us. And so
I love it.
He's young still, so he's got that spark in him. But oh boy, when they vacuum in the hallways, look out. He gets very...
Half of Angus comes up in the Hoover. That's right.
That's right.
Do you have kids?
2 kids. We have a 12-year-old girl and an 8-year-old girl in 3rd grade and 7th grade. Both amazing.
All right. What time do you normally go to bed in the morning, or go to bed at night? Sorry. Go to bed in the morning. Yeah. How about all night?
So we try to be in bed by 11. Typically, I'll fall asleep on the couch watching a great streaming show, 3 minutes into it. So I have to add that to it. And then in the morning, we get up at about 6:30. Sometimes we'll push that to 6:45 because we've got school drop off and food and lunch and, all of those things.
Do you work remotely or in an office?
Sort of. So I'm working from home today, but I have a formerly WeWork office. WeWork, of course, has declared bankruptcy. And so a different company has taken over the space. But I enjoyed working from home during the pandemic for about a week. And after a year and a half of it, we said, our place is tiny. We're in New York City. It's 700 square feet. How are we going to, 2 of us working from home and 2 kids doing school from home? And so I got this WeWork in the neighborhood, and it was just such a game changer for me.
And I wouldn't be surprised if there's some connection you keep going, with that. But ideal vacation spot, money not an object.
Newport Beach, California, specifically Crystal Cove State Park. We're going there. We've gone there for the last several years. It's kind of a Christmas tradition for the family. and we're going the week after next, and we're praying for good weather and for no delays at the airports.
Yeah.
But that is our favorite.
Yeah. So in that area, the Long Beach area, there's a massive U.S. Navy battleship called the USS Iowa. My father was on that ship when he was in Korea.
Oh, cool.
So as you're driving by, you can think about that.
Yeah. We'll keep an eye, and then we say we knew you when.
Yeah, exactly. Intersection of faith and work.
Faith and work. I probably do not do this as well as I should. I think I'm good at expressing gratitude to people that work for me and work with me. I think I have a long way to come in expressing gratitude to myself, and sort of acknowledging that I'm not an imposter. I do this, and there's the forces out there that make the world go round, and I am but a little small part of it. And so I think you don't want to overstate your importance in the grand scheme of things, but you don't want to understate it either.
Yeah, that's a good balance. Closing question. You were king for a day. What is one thing that you would like to see changed in the marketing space or marketing climate?
Stop measuring using old metrics. You're measuring nothing. You're measuring things that make you feel good and maybe make you look good to your boss, but those are not things that are going to have an impact on your company's bottom line.
Love it. And it's, if nothing else, that closing thought we have been talking about for the last 30 minutes. Everything that virtually you mentioned is kind of in that stream. So, and Lewis, thank you so much for just taking time today and just sharing with us. It's been a pleasure to meet you virtually online and just to hear your story. And I'm just very appreciative of everything that you shared, because I think it will be so helpful for our audience, and it is so current, and I don't want to overuse the term, but it really is the zeitgeist that marketers are dealing with today and will be in the near future. So thank you again for just sharing your expertise. Where's the best place to connect with you online, connect with Pairzon?
Yeah, so Pairzon, really easy, PAIRZON.com. And if for some reason you want to talk to me, I am at Lewis NYC on Twitter.
Great.
Or X, it's called.
There you go. Well, thanks again. We're approaching the holidays, so happy holidays, and I appreciate you coming on the show and really just sharing your expertise and helping marketing agencies grow and scale their business. Lewis, thanks again. Have a great weekend.
A pleasure. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you for tuning in to another great episode of the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, where we provide the information you need from successful leading marketers to build and grow your digital marketing agency. To learn more, go to umbrellaus.com.